Hello, everyone. Tonight is the open mic at the Gibson's Library, and the theme is ancestors and ghosts. I researched this and I found some good information that differentiates ancestors and ghosts, and it was a new learning for me. But at the same time, someone recommended I read a book by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who I hadn't read, and he is an amazing author, a contemporary one who has won a Nobel Prize in literature. So I have read this book, and the first one and the next one is on hold for me at the library. It was called Love During the Cholera. Sorry, I'll just Love in the Time of Cholera, and it was published in 1985. When you read a book such as this from another country, another era, it ended in this book around 1920, but it covers 50 years. And in that time, the area of Colombia, it's the Columbia coast, and they call it the Columbia Caribbean. There was so much information that I didn't know about that area. So it has propelled me, and I studied a bit this morning, to know that this country, this area, has been in civil war since the time of my book and before, and it continues on today. 50 years. I'll have to read more, but I got the gist that the author wrote this story, and there were many levels to appreciate. The central thing was the river that went through. It was a constant river. But with cholera, the murkiness, and also the Civil War, the collapse of the aristocracy and some of the shambling ruins, all this seemed to be a backdrop for three main characters. The woman character, Fermez, is a young girl with kind of a shady father who associated with the wealthy, but may have been, in fact, corrupt. He wanted his daughter to marry into money and reach that high level, which again, like I said, was sort of a crumbling vision. The other character was a man named Florentino, who one day spotted Fermez, I'll have to get her name correct, when she was a student, and immediately fell in love with her. Now, in this day and age, you might think, wow, he was not that much older, but probably 10. He recognized that he would be with her at that point. Unfortunately, the father, when he saw what was happening in their relationship, removed the daughter to a family way in the interior. Oh, what a description. Mules and just getting through this countryside. And there she remained for 3 years. They wrote letters. They managed to trick the father, sideswipe him. Florentino actually worked in the telegraph office. He was up and coming in his profession. He was a very whimsical man, but the charm of him was that he was smart, and the boss at the time appreciated that he could be in an orchestra. So, it was interesting to see what motivated all these life patterns, and certainly all he thought about after he missed his true love for those 3 years was, how is he going to get her back? So it was really unfortunate that when she came back and actually spotted him in the market, that she was horrified at herself. He looked so sorrowful. He'd always been a bit dingy and dressed in black. And for some reason, and we do know that she's a very, very authoritative, well in control person, she in that moment told him, no, we can't carry on. Reading all about this, it was so insightful. You want to applaud her for her good decision. You want to accept that he has to accept it. And she ends up marrying a very high-class doctor, Of course, her father had arranged this, Dr. Albino. And everything seemed to be going well with her marriage. So the two stories sort of came together as we were reading, and it was almost like that river. And when I think about ancestors, she was sometimes torn. Did she just get drawn into her father's vision? That's why I say this is so interesting that we're talking about vision. Did she really not listen to her heart, or was her practical nature, really standing out, that she was, and she went traveling, she had all the privileges, even though his house was kind of shambles in a way, and his old mother was a mean kind of influence, all these things, and she was hurt by this kind of lifestyle where they had to be socially looking good. In fact, that in the final analysis was what she achieved. She managed to look really good. She had two children. And, but it was also quite interesting seeing how the marriage was irritating for both of them. She liked her sleep, for example, and she felt he would deliberately make noises, even though she'd hear later, oh, I'm a man that dresses myself in the dark. And she's thinking, yeah, making all that clanky noise. Like, they had servants, but even he would complain about food, not realizing like she had organized all that with the servants. She was working hard to maintain this lifestyle. So irritated. And it was sad in a way for me to see that. But she was a strong character. Meanwhile, for Florentino was kind of learning about love and life and deciding, if he couldn't have the spiritual love as he saw it, he would explore the carnal love. Wow, what a trip that was. And we learned all sorts of things about the culture and the poverty and just him navigating everything. But, at the end, he got sort of thinking, wow, I'm really a nasty guy because I wish her husband would die. That would be perfect. And he started learning that widows actually come to life again quite soon, given the opportunity after the mourning and everything. So he was a fellow that never got rid of his desire. So when I looked up what the author was really trying to portray, he believed that when you have a vision, a desire, you can be unstoppable all your life. And his writing was so detailed that we know that Florentino was actually keeping track of all the days, and 50 years, 11 days, waiting for his opportunity. And it came. The husband did die. It was sudden, although he was older than his wife. And poor Florentino, who went to the funeral, made a tragic mistake. He approached Fermez and said, I'm still in love with you. Can we start again? She was horrified, like the nerve of him. Like, oh my goodness. And she just walked away. And that night, she cried. She cried. She kept herself together all that funeral and for the sake of everyone. But that night she cried. She missed him on the side of the bed. She didn't know how she'd live without him. In the morning, she realized that she'd been crying for Florentino. So there was a next phase of the book. Will it happen? Will it happen? Will they get together? Will they break the stereotype of elderly people? Even her own daughter, when he started visiting, cautioned the mother, told her that he was a pervert and everything. And she rejected her daughter. And speaking of the word rejection, all those 50 years, Florentino had avoided being rejected again. So it was always him who had ended relationships and all sorts of knowledge, the inside of our psyche about this kind of thing. You'd have to wonder, was he just kind of reacting from that experience, or was it true that he was so committed to having this woman? And in this day and age, would that even sound sane? And what is this? Well, I won't tell you the end, but they do go on the river. And as I say, I think that was a very big metaphor of how nothing really changed too much as the river flowed, although circumstances around it. But I'll leave that for you to find out. But I did find a passage from the author in another context. And this is what it said. He said, "The interpretation of our reality through patterns not of our own serves only to make us ever more unknown, ever less free, ever more solitary." And I think that is what the book also reflected, the potential to be solitary. But we learned that Florentino never gave up. And when I studied about the country and all that civil war, I'm thinking, you know, we can look at life from the individual perspective, from the social chaos, from all the national problems. And yes, the book really did have heart. And wouldn't it be lovely, and can I take that on as my own vision, that we can maintain our love for the world and for each other and just see through all that's going on around and believe in it. Thank you.
Oh, well done.